All right. Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. I am your exhausted host, Nick Verlaney, joined by our very good friend, Dennis. You might know him as Couch Critic on YouTube. Dennis, how are you doing?
Never a dull moment, is there? Never a dull moment. I've been better, but I'm getting through it. And, Copa was interesting. And here we are in the middle of summer and never a dull moment at Chelsea. That's for sure.
We literally can't have nice things. That is where we are these days. And
It's true.
look, and I use the term relative, but I do think this is true, a relatively quiet couple of weeks on the Chelsea front. There hasn't been a whole lot of anything going on. I was a little worried about what we were going to talk about on today's podcast. And then this afternoon happened. And look, I think for those who have listened to the podcast for a long time, we love having Dennis on. We've had Dennis on in times of triumph and in times of, let's just call this the anti-triumph, to have some difficult conversations. I think he's an incredibly important voice to do that. And so I thought we would be remiss if we didn't include his perspective here to help guide us through what is an incredibly disappointing, at minimum, situation that has been caused by the Argentina national team and for Chelsea Football Club, Enzo Fernandez, as a part of a uncouth, racist song that was sung in the light of their Copa America victory on probably Monday morning after the Sunday match was finally concluded. So you guys know all the calls to action. I'm not going to do them here just because I think this is a pretty serious episode, but help us out. That would be great. I'm just going to read a statement here, Dennis, first. Rip this from a couple of different sources, from ESPN FC, from the BBC, where Naz was reporting on it, and a couple of others, just making sure that I'm kind of covering my bases on the reporting around this. We'll have a conversation about that, and then some of the knock-on effects that will come after. Today, the French Football Federation is filing a legal complaint over racist and discriminatory remarks by Argentina players and post-match chants about France's team after the Copa America final. A video posted on Instagram by Argentina midfielder Enzo Fernandez, why not, had to be him, and widely viewed on X, showed Argentina players appearing to sing about French players with African heritage. The same chants by some Argentina fans emerged before France and Argentina met in the World Cup final 2 years ago, which Argentina won. It's an important clarification. I don't believe this song was sung by the players 2 years ago. It was sung by the fans, so I think there's maybe a little bit of misreporting there, but this is a good clarification. Given the seriousness of these shocking remarks, which are contrary to the values of sport and human rights, the Federation president has decided to contact its Argentinian counterpart and FIFA to file a legal complaint for racist and discriminatory remarks. That's what the Federation said in a statement on Tuesday. The derogatory chants single out France players of African heritage from several countries holding a French passport. Of course, then in the aftermath of the video becoming popular, Wesley Fofana, France international, shared the video on social media with the caption, "Football in 2024, uninhibited racism." The next quote is the president of the French Football Federation, Philippe Diallo, condemns this in the strongest possible terms the unacceptable racist and discriminatory remarks made against the players of the France team as a part of a song sung by players and supporters of the Argentine team. FIFA could not immediately confirm Tuesday if the French complaint had been filed, assuming that there's a little bit of a lag there. I'm sure that will be confirmed in due time. Okay, there's a lot in that. Obviously, I think for everybody, this is a incredibly stupid, avoidable, and downright racist situation that has developed in the light of what should have been a joyous occasion for Argentina's national team defeating Colombia on Sunday. There are incredible knock-on effects to this that we are going to basically go through in detail with different perspectives from journalists and fans and, just facts on the ground as we go, Dennis. But I'll take a pause after reading that incredibly long statement, reporting from ESPN and BBC, et cetera. Well, just base thoughts right now, like what's going through your head about the situation as it unveiled.
I mean, I'd like to start by saying that I'm not shocked. I've kind of had. I don't think that racism is something where football. Football is certainly not immune to it. That's for sure. And we've seen this before. We've seen it again. And I think the problem that we have as a society is, as we progress, as we move forward towards equality and whatnot, the notion of equality and whatnot has advanced beyond the actual mentality within the individuals, right? And in some of these other places, like somewhere like Argentina, where there isn't really a whole lot of racial sensitivity, racial training, I don't believe. With the research that I've done, it's very hard for me to look at something like this and be shocked by it, and first of all, like I think we should actually go back, because when this did happen in the World Cup, even though the players weren't involved, it's actually almost worse to me, the fact that like they've taken up that chant after the fact, and now have as displayed it as something that they basically are in line with, you can say a bunch of stupid fans said something stupid during the World Cup, but to take that on in a Copa America where it doesn't even really apply, like, it doesn't even have any place in that tournament, to take that on and then use that as another, as another chant for your own, your own pride and whatnot, or however you want to look at it, is almost worse. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of things to unpack here. Ultimately, I think that we're going to get into a lot of the how this is going to affect Chelsea and whatnot. But my initial reaction is not shock. It's more just a little disappointed. I really feel like we've done enough work within the club as far as like race training, like xenophobia, like whether it's in the terraces or even in the clubhouse. You expect that to be part of the fabric. You expect that to be, entrenched in these guys. Like you should know, like you're going on social media, you be very careful about what you put on social media. And for Enzo Fernandez, like it's just how do you not have that gene? How are you so dumb? How do you not realize that this is going to have far-reaching, repercussions that will impact not only you as an individual but the club as a whole? So I'm a little more disappointed than I am, shocked. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think for a lot of people got caught up in a really dumb racist situation that should have never happened, and I think it shows the difference between leaders and followers. Um, there are a lot of followers on that bus. A lot of people who did not have the good sense to think for themselves, who did not have the good sense to uh, press stop on the recording, who did not have the good sense to condemn it live. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking the piss out of another team, for play on the field or whatever. But there is something wrong when it's about who these people are and where they're from, and even some notes of transphobia in there as well. It's really a complete package for those who love hating people. That chant, it's really despicable song. So yeah, first thought is just a lot of followers and not a lot of leaders within the Argentina team, which is
Fair.
is disappointing.
And like, full disclosure, like I can speak to myself, I can speak to a number of black people that I know that follow the France team and whatnot. Full disclosure, we we take that moniker of like France having a bunch of African players in their starting 11 on their team in their setup. We wear that with a badge of honor. Like we think that, like, there's a lot of people that think about that as being like, wow, look how far, like not even so much how far, but look look what France is made up of, this continent of people, and those people coming in and making that team what it is. Like there's a lot of people that wear that as a badge of honor. Obviously the tone of what was said by the Argentinian team has changed that sort of like the whole trajectory of that. But let it be known, first and foremost, black people are very, very proud of the fact that African players of African descent, represent France. That's great. The fact that they've risen to those heights.
Well, and a few of them play for Chelsea,
Yeah.
which is another wrinkle in this story. Obviously, we heard from Wes Fafana earlier, who then on that very same tweet received racist abuse. So everyone's just really having a bad day on
Oh
the
man.
racism front. Yeah, that was. I mean, it's just brutal to see. And then there's word out that a bunch of his teammates have unfollowed him, have unfollowed Enzo Fernandez, Axel Disasi, Malagusto, Wesley Fafana, among others. Again, these are people, man. It's the thing that we come back to time after time when we've had multiple conversations over the years, Dennis, about racism at Chelsea. We're both wearing the Paul Carnival Foundation shirts as we speak here today, and it always comes back to that notion of like these are people, and these are the guys that you go into battle with every week. Like these are the guys that you're supposed to lock arms with and you know be a professional with at the very least, if not a friend at the very most. And that's what I don't get about this whole experience is like it's not as if he only has ever played with Argentinians and that he only plays in Argentina and that he's only ever met folks who are from Argentina or whatever. Like this is a guy who has a ton of international experience, has now won two major international trophies, coming across players of all races and creeds, and some of those people are on his team.
Mm. Yeah, that pretty much says it all. And I'm studying the speed at which that had rippling effects throughout the club. Like how many players after hearing that just decided to unfollow him? Like you would think if you have that brotherhood and whatnot that we speak of amongst the Chelsea's players and whatnot, they would be looking to speak to him before they make such a snap judgment and say, I'm just unfollowing this guy, forget it. Because that's a statement they're making right now. Like whether or not you're following somebody on, social media or whatever, that doesn't, who cares really? Like it doesn't really, but they took the point of doing that to make a statement to say, we're not standing with this guy anymore. We don't stand with you, and that in and of itself is what I'm studying. More the speed in which that they did it, the fact that they didn't really think about like trying to like get to a point where, even if they're on a WhatsApp group, like, yo, dude, what's going on here? Like whatever it may be. They ignored all of that. And then it started to ripple throughout the club. Like, Lavia started unfollowing him and like, Batty, there's a bunch of them. Like, we're not even talking about like just French players. I know Lavia speaks French and whatnot, but he's Belgian. He stopped unfollowing, he unfollowed him as well. So I think that is something that is going to be a telltale to this whole thing. And obviously the club has released a statement saying that they're taking this very seriously. They're going to talk to Enzo about it. I don't think it's going to stop at. I know we're going to get into what we think that the ramifications and like the impact this is going to have. I don't think it's just going to be that apology that he put out on social, and then everything's hunky dory. We get back into training camp and everything's good. There's going to be the impact of this is going to be far reaching, I think.
Well, let's. It feels shitty to do this. Let's take a quick ad break and then come back. We'll talk about Enzo's apology. We'll talk about the various journalists and fans who put out some really smart and thoughtful content today. And then we'll talk about what could come next after this. At the end, we'll have a little bit of a sweetener talking about some transfer stuff. But look, we're dealing with the news of the day, and I think the news of the day takes precedence. So thanks to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, Dennis. We got a little bit before we recorded here, and again, time of recording is roughly 10 Eastern on Tuesday night, the 16th. As of this recording, nothing from the Argentina national team, and I don't think anything else from any other players who are involved in this video. I could be wrong, but just based on all the reporting out there, I believe there's only been one public apology, and fortunately, that was Enzo who put out a public apology. I'll read it in full here. I want to apologize sincerely for a video posted on my Instagram channel during the national team celebrations. The song includes highly offensive language. There's absolutely no excuse for these words. I stand against discrimination in all forms and apologize for getting caught up in the euphoria of our Copa America celebrations. That video, that moment, those words do not reflect on my beliefs or my character. I am truly sorry. What are your thoughts about that statement?
Again, had to be made. Whether or not it's felt is another thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has a chance to, correct their actions and whatnot, but I don't know if this statement does enough, goes far enough to just eliminate the taste from my mouth, right? Like I'm still looking at this and I'm still thinking about like, yeah, well, you apologize, but that could have been written by somebody in your PR firm. That could have been the at the urging of however many of your managers and whatnot, just to like because it's a snowballed and whatnot. The truth is going to be in how he goes back to his team, the players on his team, and how he if he has the ability to show the necessary, you know, sorrow, like an apologetic nature to affect how they feel about him going forward. He's not apologizing to me. Like, let's be real. He's not apologizing to me, you, and like the true apology has to go with the 6, 7, 8 guys that are in that room with him, battling with him on a day-to-day basis, right? And until that message is felt through them, then I can't feel anything, right? Like we've all seen this many, many times before where somebody has a misstep and the very next thing they say, well, I'm sorry. And I understand that you can be sorry about something like that, but how do you get to a point where you're even like uttering that kind of thing? You know what I mean? Where does that come from? And that's probably part of the problem too, that the fact that this is so systemic, the fact that they thought that was very fine to be saying that after, no reprimand for, the people that said it during the World Cup. Absolutely no reprimand. They just took it on and took it as something that was just another thing that we say. We're taking this on as a chant, right? So for me, it's more about how you move forward with the team and whether they're willing to accept what it is that you're saying than it is for me to say, well, yeah, he said he's sorry, I'm good with it now. So remains to be seen. I don't think it's going to end here though.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with you that like it had to be done. I mean, this thing caught wildfire on Tuesday afternoon, and it's all over. It's one of the trending things on Twitter, and it's like it's inescapable, I should say, from being talked about. Um, there are some things I'm going to nitpick this statement. I'm just because I've seen what good apologies look like and what bad apologies look like. This is somewhere in the middle for me personally. Again, it's my interpretation. What he feels in his heart, I have no idea, right? And I hope that he expresses that to his teammates and that he makes that incredibly well known through his actions moving forward. Because I agree
Mm-hmm.
that's for you or I to judge is just we're on the outside looking in, right? So I just a video posted on my Instagram channel insinuates that he wasn't the one posting it, which is odd to me. It's just the way that it's written is strange. Uh, Highly offensive language, no shit. I think the thing that people are taking most umbrage with is the I got caught up in the euphoria of Copa America celebrations. I I you don't have to turn to racist songs after you're feeling great. And if this is how you turn up after a celebration, like there's a deeper problem there.
Right.
You
And
know,
and like the fact that that song has absolutely nothing to do with Copa America. Like this is completely outside of that, right? Like it's just odd to me.
yeah. So I just again, what is in his heart? I hope that he is contrite. I hope that he shows and really demonstrates a level of contrition and really works moving forward on this, and that he's able to prove that to his teammates. Because at the end of the day, that's for Chelsea fans. Like this is a really really tough situation heading into a new season where there's a ton of optimism about where the team might go, and
Yeah,
he's supposed to be a big part of it. And I think we were talking a little bit before the show, Dennis, that like it or not, the transfer fee, the wages, the public perception, the image, the commercials, all of it mean that he and so many other athletes at this sort of high level that he's at are playing by different rules,
for
right?
sure.
And by the way, playing by different rules still includes no racism. um, those rules are the same for everybody. But
Yeah.
like your standards are even higher for mistakes, right? Because you're in the public sphere, you get the PR training. You know, we were talking a little bit about this. He is, outside of Reece James on the team, probably the most recognizable guy
I mean,
at
his
Chelsea.
jersey was the best selling jersey at Chelsea. Like that says it all right there.
Right. And again, this is not to do with the incident, but more about his why this is such a big deal is
Mhm.
that he is out there. You
Yeah.
know, he's not a wallflower. He doesn't sit back and just let things happen. He is out there doing all the press. He's out there playing in the international tournaments. He's out there talking shit to Mason Mount after the United game last year. He's out there, he's out there, he's out there, right? And to me, this is, you know, part of the reason why people have I think expressed their righteous outrage at this is because that I don't believe Messi's in that video. Right. I don't have a deep enough perspective because it's a pretty dark video. I would bet dollars to donuts that Messi's not in that video and he's certainly not participating in that chant because he knows better.
I would bet good money that Messi ain't even on that bus. I'm pretty sure Messi's got his own Lear jet that he's like, all right, see you later, fellas. You know, I'm not sullying my good name by, you know, traveling with some colorful characters. But with that said, like I think one of the words that you said that I think really resonated with me, and I probably was struggling to find it earlier, was contrition. And, I don't necessarily deem anyone to be everyone's a man, whether you're saint or sinner, we all have flaws within our own character and whatnot. And, to be adjudged
Yeah, we're human.
better than, yeah, exactly. To be judged better than, what our natural responses are to certain things, or to be adjudged to be, better than what we are, which is human, is difficult, especially for athletes who are under an immense amount of pressure and whatnot. But again, it goes back to the training. Like you had to have been well schooled in PR to know, or maybe even just social media in general. Don't live tweet things like that, man. Like don't like there's so many things that like could have been avoided in the pursuit of just like this we're having a good time, Argentina, whatever. Like there's certain things that has to be entrenched in what you do, and like the PR thing, like I said earlier, like I think Enzo, and if you follow like social media on for like South America, Chelsea, South America, and whatnot, I kid you not, the only two people that are marketed in that market is Enzo and Caicedo. You don't see anybody else. You don't see Cole Palmer. You don't see, Nkunku. You don't see any of those guys. You see Enzo and Caicedo. So for me, you're basically representing the club in a complete in South America, like right across the entire board, not just in Argentina. And that to me means that you have to carry more responsibility, unfortunately. But again, that comes with the price tag too. You're not paid 50 quid. You're getting paid an exorbitant amount of money, and your actions have to be of that quality. You have to represent the club in the best light at every time, whether the camera's on or off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he just hasn't done that.
Yeah, I think it just shows like he's still young. He's a young guy, right? And I was an idiot at 21, 22 as
Yeah,
well.
me
Right.
too.
So I think there is a lot of room to grow from this, but I think I also wasn't making 50 million a year either. Right. So my profile for mistakes and my threshold was a little bit lower. I think the next step for him is he has to have a team around him that helps him out, man, because you see it with so many different folks in media, those who especially are not, always aware of their surroundings, and those who may err on making the wrong decision more often than not. It's like they have a team going, nope, don't do it.
Nope.
I wouldn't recommend it. Thanks.
As a matter of fact, so much so that like you can have somebody that's like controlling your social media, and they're basically posting for you. They will basically edit what you want to
Yeah.
say and make sure that it's PC enough to go out there. You know what I mean?
Like, give me your phone. You're not
Pretty much.
yeah, don't you're
You know,
you're not doing this. So yeah, I wanted to say that because I think like again, it's not this is not condemning him, in any way to like eternal shame. Like he's never going to get a comeback from this. But I think it was hubris that got him into this position, and it probably was like we don't care, we don't like record the thing. Who cares? Like whatever. And it's just not becoming of someone at his stature and at his level. I just want to read a few journalist pieces and some
sure.
fan mentions here, and then we can kind of talk about what comes next, Dennis, because it's been a bit of a sticky one to pick apart here. Versus came out with I would highly recommend anyone go read Versus
Yeah.
on Twitter's statement about this. Their caption said we need to hold the Argentina national team accountable for the racism and transphobia. Again, to this point, Enzo is the only party who has apologized publicly. So
With that said though, no other team had players unfollow players on their team. Like Enzo became the poster boy, but also because the players from Chelsea decided to unfollow him. So there is that.
They have a really smart piece on this. I just, I would encourage everyone to read it. I'll read the last bit because I think it's really, really good. It's basically said Chelsea midfielder Enzo Fernandez recorded himself and his teammates singing a racist, transphobic chant on Instagram Live after their victory on Sunday. Chant was first sung by those fans that we already mentioned and makes an offensive reference to Kylian Mbappe's connection to transgender model Ines Rao. Spoken about the ways that mainstream media and fans have engaged in perpetuating some of this deeply harmful rhetoric. This is much more alarming, though, as it directly involves players at the highest level of football. Not only did the national team fail to denounce this hateful, quote unquote, fan chant, but it's not a fan chant anymore. From the jump, they adopted it proudly as their own on social, of all places. That is the highest ranked national team in the world. That they would choose to revel in victory in such an important way speaks to the level of hubris that the team is that they basically overlooked for so long. Nazar Kinsella, friend of the pod, now at the BBC, has reported that Chelsea are investigating the incident and taking it very seriously. Liam then follows up with Enzo Fernandez and by extension, Chelsea have a real problem here. They said it follows up by saying, for those inclined to downplay this, point out the other players in the video or suggest that Fofana is the only one reacting to it. It's worth noting that none of the 6 French players in Chelsea's first team are following him on Instagram. That is deeper seated. And then Nico Cantor, which, if you follow any sort of football commentary, his dad, Andres Cantor, is one of the very best to have ever done it. And Nico is on his way up there as well, working for CBS in the States. He said, what a triumphant celebration. What should have been a triumphant celebration of Argentina's success is marred by the players singing a thematically racist song. I say this as a person of Argentine heritage who understands the ramifications of their words beyond the country's borders. It highlights the deeper issues in society and the unwillingness to grapple with them. Those who are discriminating against have become such a tiny fraction of the community that national discourse won't reckon with the racial problems. This is by no means justification, only an explanation as to why the situation is what it is. But the players who live abroad have a great understanding of the world, should know better. They hold social responsibility as well. And hopefully, especially on their own behalf, they display accountability. Accountability is a good word to use in here too. It saddens me that when I go abroad, people automatically assume that I'm racist simply because of my nationality. And I do hope one day there's honest self-reflection and change. That's Nico Cantor about his own folks there, and I think a really well-worded statement.
Well worded.
And look, Dennis, this is you have multiple journalists, big publications, commentator like. I got a bunch of people when I first posted about it who were like, "Not a big deal, move on." Not a big deal, move on.
And were they able to move on? Clearly, this is an issue. Like, I don't understand how somebody can see this. Like, in the moment, maybe you need to see what the snowball effect is of it before you can see to get the gravity of it, like the weight of it all, right? Like, Like
Yeah.
maybe it only became an issue in the minds of some Chelsea players who want to protect. We love our players. We want to protect them at all costs, right? You only see the weight of it when you see the fact that Fofana's upset about it and that the rest of the team just started to unfollow him and whatnot, right? That's when you start seeing the true magnitude of what this thing is, right? But truly, like I don't know if the fallout is going to end here. Like I really don't. Like I was speaking to a bunch of friends of mine online and whatnot. We're talking about like what are the ramifications? Okay, well, yeah, he's got to apologize and then he'll do some like sensitivity training and then sure he'll have to do that anyways. My problem and the reason why I'm not so sure this is going to end as rosy as everyone thinks it's going to be is that it's in the locker room. This is not the first time. This is the first time anything like this has played out in a locker room. Where we know publicly that members in the dressing room have issue with this. Big issues with this. So it's good. It's not going to be as easy as just like, okay, well, some sensitivity training, have a couple beers and then it's over with. These guys are noticeably upset, and they basically, like the instance that the fact that they came out instantly and basically unfollowed him is a telltale that this is deeper than just okay, well, we'll just have some beers and talk about it later.
I think to your point, longtime friend of the pod and someone we haven't heard from a ton recently, but came back over the last couple of weeks to talk about the Euros and this incident. Joe Tweeds uh, said
Joe.
that said that we've barely kicked a ball in preseason, and Maresca / the club already have a nuclear, potentially season-defining situation on their hands. We've gone from chaos and trophies to just chaos, and kind of that's how it feels right now. It's it was already going to be hard enough. The season was already going to be hard enough on the field, off the field, commercially, play, new signings, transfers out, like some of the stuff we'll talk about here in a little bit. Now you have this, and the reason why we want to talk about what comes next is this isn't a brand new situation by any means, but it's a pretty rare situation.
Absolutely.
There is unfortunately a Wikipedia page for instances of racism in English football. I put it out on my personal Twitter page. It is at minimum 20-minute scroll.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that to read all of them. And by the way, it's only from like a certain year on. It's not from all the way back in the day either, right? Like these are relatively new, relatively fresh. The only one that I could find that had an inter-team aspect to it in the Premier League was Bernardo Silva and Benjamin Mendy for
Right.
City, and that was kind of swept under the rug. Raheem Sterling kind of came to the aid of Bernardo Silva and helped to smooth it over. Silva was charged by the FA and was banned for one match and fined £50,000. There was another incident between opposition players, Leeds goalkeeper, and this is in both are in 2019, by the way, just for reference. Leeds goalkeeper Kiko Casilla was accused of racially abusing Charlton forward Jonathan Lecco in a match between the two teams. November 2019, he denied the charge. He was later found guilty and banned for 8 matches and fined £60,000. Just on the what could happen here front, any number of possibilities. I'm not going to say like, hey, this is absolutely going to be the case. This is what's going to happen. But there could be potential punishments from international football organizations, from domestic football organizations, and almost certainly from Chelsea Football Club, his employer. This is look, these are big boys making a lot of money. Like these sorts of very public brand altering screw ups are not going to be tolerated. Like not for a business like Chelsea Football Club that's spending as much money as they are to redefine their image under this new ownership group. This is not going to be suffered. And so I think just I wanted to give a little bit of framing as to how it's been handled in the past. Now those were not international duty things, so I don't know exactly what the protocol looks like or how it even shakes out. But if Chelsea's already investigating, that's going to be one part of this story that needs to be uncovered. But I think, Dennis, to your point, how how does he begin to make amends with his teammates? Because I think like
I wish I knew, man. I don't think that, again, because it's such a deeply, like that affects a lot of people, right? And you can say, you can apologize and take all the training and whatnot. Like, it's going to take a long time to repair the relationships, right? Because unless you can come to me as a man, look me in the face and say, listen, dude, I want you to know that this is not my character at all. And I can feel that, like actually feel that, not just like a statement written on a piece of paper or whatever. Like, I'm feeling it from you. Then it's going to be very hard to, predict what the outcome is going to be from one person to the next, truly, right? One person might be able to see, the truth of what he is as a person, and be able to like look past it, or be able to like accept him as who he is. And another person be like, dude, nah, man, like that's crossing the line. That's really deeply affected me. And the fact that it came from, a fan chant, and then it wasn't like nobody came out from Argentina at the time and said like, this is not what we're about at all. Like they just left it. It just kind of like sat there. Like the Federation should have said something ages ago. And then the team has come on and taken on that chant again, and not seeing that there's a problem with it. So, it's just the tone deaf aspect of it. And then also the fact that, like, yeah, your teammates, you're not even thinking about your team, So I think it's going to take a lot of him showing, basically showing that his character is not of that, that his character is different. He got caught up in a moment where his team was, saying something, and, maybe like you said, maybe he's not much of a leader. He's more of a follower, a guy that just kind of wanted to be a part of the team and felt like that was a way of, endearing himself to his teammates. I don't know. I don't know what the PR spin is going to be, but I'm going to tell you right now, the ramifications of this thing within the locker room and whatnot, it's going to be far reaching, man. It has to be, like, because it just has to be, right?
it felt, I mean, this is not a broadly racist trope. This is a very specific targeted trope that affects at the very least those six players at Chelsea, and at the very most a lot of people in Europe. Like this is not a small like thing, and like it would feel very. I imagine that they felt like this was a personal broadside to them.
Hmm.
Like like it's just it's wild. I mean, look, it's a show don't tell situation minimum. Like
Basically.
you don't, you're gonna have to prove and prove and prove. Like this is not who I am. And by the way, for Enzo to put out a statement before the Argentina Federation put out a statement, or that any of his other teammates put out a statement, again, the whole organization are followers. Like everybody there are followers. You could argue that the best step that was taken was by one person in this
Hmm.
entire thing, and that was to make the initial apology, which I have varying thoughts on it anyway. But I mean, I think any final thoughts about this, Dennis? I mean, I do want to move on to the other
Yeah.
great things that are happening in Chelsea Football Club. I don't want to like belabor this forever or make him seem like he's going to never be able to recover from this. But
Right.
it became very very serious very very quick when when
Hmm.
the video surfaced, and I I'm glad to have your perspective here, because
Hmm.
it's difficult to know what to say in these circumstances, frankly. And
It's difficult for me too, dude. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I can't even speak to the, you know, just the xenophobic. I can't speak to that. Like, just being like North American, like yourself, like, as much as we encounter racism every day and whatnot, like, the xenophobic aspect of it is, I just don't see that very often. Like, and as I said before, I still think that, like, most black people who are of African descent wear that as a badge of honor, that France has so many African players in that team. Like, they're like, wow, what would you be without us, kind of thing. So I see that, right? But at the same time, to have that, have your, not even so much your ethnicity thrown at you, but like your heritage and like where you come from. because most of these guys are born in France. Like, what are we talking about here, right? Like, they they're trained in France. They learned French football. Like, they came up through the ranks in French football. It's not like they just like plucked them, from Papua New Guinea and said like, here, yeah, come play for France, please. Like these guys are naturalized French players. You know what I mean? Like they live in France, born and bred. All of that. So it's just it doesn't really resonate with me, the apology, because you're not really looking at the gravity of what it is that you said. Like these guys are French. Like there's no disputing their nationality here. They're French. They're born and bred everything. So yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. I'm hoping that he can come out of it and whatnot, but it's really not going to be down to what is going to happen in the PR circles. It's what's going to happen between him and his teammates, whether or not he can show to them how sorry he is, and make repair that relationship, because we're talking about chemistry too. Like we're going to get into Chelsea and whatnot. We're going to talk about what Chelsea's going to look like, and for the upcoming season, we're talking about chemistry now. We can't have these sort of like factions of of clubs, like, or of players, like one with Nenzo, another guy's with Fofana, another guy's over here. We have to be a team, one team, and it's going to be very hard to redefine that given what's happened right now. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I think final word for me is I hope he proves how contrite he is. I hope that he does the work that's required to reintegrate into the team, and I hope that the club takes this incredibly seriously. I mean, I can't imagine that they won't at this point. It seems like it's trending in that direction, but um, you know, again, at the very least, this was a brainless follower action in the midst of what could have been one of the very coolest days of his life, and now he's on the hook for it for the
Mm-hmm.
foreseeable future. So again, he's young. I hope that he has the wherewithal to figure it out. And we're gonna take an ad break, Dennis, and come back to something a little lighter. How about that?
I love it. I'm gonna have a beer.
Okay. All right. Thanks to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right. And now for something completely different. Little Monty Python for you there. A lot going on with Chelsea, a lot going on with some transfers in, transfers out. So I'm just going to touch on a few things here and see how we feel. Starting off with Chelsea women, who have been on a tear to start this transfer window. They signed Orion Jean-Francois from PSG today. This went obviously a little under the radar with everything else going on. But this is an incredible talent. Kind of a U23 talent. She's 21, has played for both of her clubs, 91 senior appearances, had an ACL injury. Jesse Parker Humphreys, good friend of the pod, put out a tweet that I just wanted to read because the scouting is going to happen as the summer evolves here. But Jesse said, "I'm not sure how distinguishable she is from some of the other midfield profiles that we already have. But the 91 senior appearances before the age of 23, despite having the ACL injury, is very legit. Passing percentage in the very nearly 90%. Interceptions up in the kind of high twos. Progressive passes 6.2 a game. Progressive carries all over the place. Headers won an impressive 64%. A little turnover prone, so maybe something to work on, but this is definitely one for the future. And you think about where Chelsea have started to revitalize the midfield this year with Bartel and now with Jean-Francois. This is a probably one for the future type of signing, but we've also seen, Dennis, that the Chelsea women will sometimes integrate some of these younger talents sooner than we anticipated. And you look at Aggie Beaver-Jones last year, who got a lot more playing time than anyone expected. Maybe Jean-Francois gets that nod in midfield.
I mean, if you're a midfielder and you're passing it 90% of the time, and you got progressive passes in, what is it, the 86th percentile of progressive carries, and like, you can probably play for this team right now. I mean, obviously the leagues are a little bit different, but And Chelsea's a little bit, they're a veteran club and whatnot, but I would wager she's going to be playing. She's going to be playing because ball possession and passing acumen is clearly high, and we can always use that in the club.
Well, this is someone that Bon Pastor certainly watched keenly over the last
For sure.
couple of years, being at Lyon and playing against PSG quite a bit. So one for the future, but some good news on the midfield front as Melly Loopholes went to Real Madrid.
Mm.
Look, Chelsea men, outside of the obvious storylines from earlier, have been doing a lot of fun conditioning. Dennis, it looks like they're just having a blast doing long jumps and all sorts of weight training.
Shalaba.
And look, the videos are fun, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of being hard on him here, but it's a lot of this is what you do at the beginning of a camp. You
Mhm.
get your ass in shape. You make sure that, hopefully, knock on wood, you're not going to be injury prone when the hot days start really getting hot when they come to the States here, which is going to happen in a little less than a week. I mean, or actually 8 days from now, the 24th. This is coming up quick. Dan and I were talking to each other a few pods ago. Like, we're only a couple weeks away from this preseason, and then we're only another like 5.5 weeks away from the start of the season.
Yeah.
And it's
We're here.
like, where the hell did this come from? Like, we got all this fun summer of soccer with the Euros and the Copa and the Olympics coming up and everything, and it's like, bam, the Premier League is just going to hit you right in the face on the
Absolutely.
18th of August. We are a little less or a little more than a month away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can talk about like signings and whatnot. And you touched on the fitness aspect, like making sure that everyone's fit. I think the biggest signing that this club have made this entire like season, like probably for the last year, is in the medical department, man. Get that medical, like get me some people in there that understand the rigors of the Premier League, that understand what it means to keep a team fit for the duration of a season.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem that I had for the last two seasons was the amount of reoccurring injuries. So somebody comes back and then goes right back out again. So like, what kind of assessment is going on at the club when you bring somebody back and then 2 weeks later they're out again, or they come back and then like there's a misassessment and they're out for longer. So I think any championship team will tell you that keeping players healthy and having a physio department that knows how to keep people healthy is paramount to success. So let's just hope that they've addressed that in the new sort of like setup that they have there right now. But that is paramount for me, and I'm happy that they made that decision.
Well, speaking of transfers, Dennis,
Hmm.
we're all back into the never-ending sagas that will exist. And Chelsea have obviously done a fair bit of business under the radar in many cases this summer.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some pretty high-profile players that are still out there, both to be had and to be moved on. There is a lot coming out of Fabrizio right now, who said that Chelsea want a right-footed winger and are considering the possibility of bringing in one more striker. These are the two positions they want to cover now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the very next tweet, we learned a little about the strikers. Romelu Lukaku, a player
Who?
that I've never heard of before, Dennis, and
Oh,
must be a young talent that we've never heard of before.
promising,
Says,
promising.
yeah, probably not. Not for Belgium anyway. That was a tough look.
Oh, that guy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He said Romelu Lukaku gives total priority to Napoli, waiting for them in case Victor Osimhen leaves the club. Lukaku wants to rejoin Antonio Conte, while Conte is also very keen on signing Romelu. If Osimhen leaves, Napoli will be ready to advance in talks with Chelsea. And it's just a note that he doesn't say that Osimhen would go to Chelsea as part of a swap deal or anything like that. I don't think Osimhen's
Swap
possible.
deals don't happen, right?
No,
Swap
they
deals
really
don't
don't.
happen.
They
No.
really don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my only note for Napoli, after how much of a difficult club they are to negotiate with, is pay me the money.
Mm.
We have a 38 million pound release clause. I will require all 38 million pounds and probably another million for the
Add-ons.
inconvenience of this whole thing.
I'll need some add-ons on that too, by the way, and I'm leaving town tax and all the fixins. All right, but yeah, no, it's interesting. Forza Conte, man, let it get it happening, man. Forza Conte, man, come on, man. This guy
Yeah,
just keeps giving back to the club, man. What's next? Is he gonna get Vidal? Is he bringing back Vidal too, and like Condreva? Like,
just
what's
getting the
going?
whole band back together.
Let's go, man.
So Lukaku, that would be a nice little sum for us to
Yeah.
acquire. That'd be great. One that I don't like, but is really started to heat up now that the Euros are over, is Atletico Madrid's interest in Conor Gallagher. This is obviously, if you've listened and followed along with all the rumors that are out there, Chelsea are interested in Omar Odion, who is a young striker for Atletico. There seems to be interest in both of these players from both of these respective parties. It's not hard to see how this might look or feel if they ever did advance, but just something to kind of note, especially as Chelsea have signed Keenan Dewsbury Hall, who we did a wonderful pod on Monday about, just a tactical review. So note that Connor's probably going to heat up here. And I assume, based on all the conversations that we have, like he's not going to be pressed to leave. Like he is just fine where he's at and will obviously compete for, I think a lot of playing time if he does make the Maresca system. He seems fucking tailor made for it. So
He works hard. You know what's funny too? I don't know if you experience this, but like for everyone that like every one of like Conor Gallagher's detractors, you'll hear, "Oh, he sucks, man." Like why don't they just like he's not even worth 15 million pound? You know what? And then like every one of them are like, "Well, no, they gotta pay us 60 million." I'm like, well, everything that you've said to me so far has told me that he's not even worth 15 million, but now you want Chelsea to hold up for 60 in order to it's just like cannot compute. Cannot compute. Is he a 60 million pound player or is he a 50 million pound player? Which one is it?
yeah, so he's either terrible and not worth any transfer fee, or you think that he is one of the very best midfielders in the world for that price tag.
Right. Right. The answer is somewhere in
Fascinating.
the between. The answer is somewhere in between, right?
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
One that I would love, although seems very unlikely at this point, is Nico Williams. Chelsea have
Mm.
apparently watched him a lot last season at Bilbao. Look, the left winger is on the list of club targets. The wages are the problem. Barcelona is trying to sell their soul to get him, which they barely have any left. So it's gonna be tough for that. But boy, would Nico Williams look good in Chelsea blue, huh? Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, I think so. After missing out on Olise, who I thought was tailor made,
Oh,
like it would have been perfect in the setup, but yeah, I missed out on him. Bringing in Nico Williams as a plan B, if that can you consider that a plan B? I don't know. Anyway, he'd just be fantastic. Has everything, obviously shifty, quick, goal scoring. Has an eye for a pass. Yeah, I would not mind, but again, I think the wages are going to be a problem, and
mm-hmm.
this club is ironclad, not trying to break wage structures anymore. We just can't afford to do it. So just maybe he needs to just like maybe a little under the table kind of thing happening. I don't know, like something, man. Just work something out because he would be fantastic at Chelsea.
I would love it. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I would absolutely
Mm,
love it. How good was he in the final? Oh my
wow,
god.
wow.
Oh.
Not just the final though. Like I mean,
No.
but to see his game not to see him shrink into himself on a stage that big. You know what I mean? And be the shining light throughout that tournament. Like he obviously Yamal's going to get a lot of the plaudits because he's so young and whatnot, but had it not been for Nico Williams, I don't think that they would have been as anywhere near as effective as they were throughout that tournament. He was electric,
He gave
from
Kyle
group stages
Walker
on.
all he could handle and then some. And that is a hard thing to do. Kyle Walker is
True,
still a very, very good right back. And so,
absolutely.
yeah, anyway, let's fantasize about that a little bit later. But
Mm.
the last one I have here, and this probably isn't a surprise as much, but I did want to cover off on it because Chelsea have a pretty congested midfield right now. There's a lot going on with different profiles of midfielders where Caicedo and possibly Enzo, possibly
I wasn't gonna
Gallagher,
say it. I
possibly
wasn't gonna say it.
Dewsbury Hall, all these guys are going to play because there's only so many different midfield spots. And we saw Chelsea largely play with kind of a two in holding midfield and one advance last year. Ugo Chukwu is potentially going to stay in the Premier League for, I guess, Everton want to sign him, but there's also a couple of League One clubs that want to sign him on loan too. So one to look out for. I think he definitely does need a loan. He did look a little raw, and that's pretty natural. I think he was 19 last year or something like that. So this is still a pretty young player, but hopefully he gets a very good loan and is able to gain that experience. And like we said a couple weeks ago on the pod, like either come in and go, wow, that's our holding midfielder for the next couple of years, or maybe he's not Chelsea material. Like we have to figure that out still. He's still obviously not of the kind of experience that we need. But it's interesting, the Everton connection, because Onana just went
Exactly.
to Aston Villa, and that would be kind of an interesting replacement for him at the club.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
really interesting one there. I don't know. Any thoughts on him?
Yeah. I actually like Leslie. I think that he's got something about his game. But with that said, he hasn't played a lot of football. And last year he was robbed of an opportunity to play a little bit more, but even that was a limited role. So I don't think that you can have a guy at the club who has basically not going to play a lot of football for 2 years. Like if he spent his time at the club and didn't get to play last year, then his time to go on loan has to be now, because he has to get minutes and develop, find his football and just evolve his game. Conversely to that, I didn't think Santos was ready to play for Chelsea last year. Contrary to what many people thought, I just didn't think he was ready. Like he needed to be on loan as well. But again, I think that now there's a place for him to come back into the side, mainly because I think the way we are going to play would suit his style of play a little bit more. So if you're going to swap one for the other, it would make sense to keep Santos and send Leslie on loan, just because of the makeup of that midfield right now. We're going to need people that are not basically sitting sixes, but people that are more, eights in a lot of ways. Like can, get forward and be I guess like more pass oriented midfielders, guys that can be box to box and whatnot. I don't think that Leslie is really that type of player. He's more of like that anchor that kind of sits and just waits and breaks things up. And I don't think that Maresca plays with anyone like that in the midfield. So it's going to be hard for him to find minutes if he doesn't really evolve his game.
Interesting note about Andre, and then we'll jump from this one.
Mm.
He just did an interview in Brazil, and he said Maresca plays a 3-2-5 effectively. That's kind of how we look in
Yep.
possession, right?
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, with the slide inside for the either one of the fullbacks. I've already played in this scheme with Coach Paulo Victor Gomez in the Brazilian under 15, under 17 team. As the sort of pivot role, you take the game from the front. I feel very comfortable and adapted to make the first essentially motion to the side. I really like to dictate the pace of the game, so it'll be interesting to see. And by the way, that was me using some Google Translate on some Portuguese. So if it
Sounded
didn't come
great to
out
me.
perfect, tough beat for me. But I do think that this system could really benefit Santos, especially
Mhm.
as we potentially could play up to 69 games this season if we
Mhm.
advance in all these competitions plus the Club World Cup. So I think there would be plenty of matches for him to come in either as a super sub or potentially to spell as a starter and give some players some
Let's look at
rest.
it. Let's look at it. Enzo's going to be suspended for 20 games.
Stop.
Lavia,
Not true.
Lavia's
Not true yet.
Lavia's injured. Like he gets injured a lot, right? So
I
there's
forgot
no
about Lavia.
telling,
I didn't even mention him earlier. I totally
right?
blanked on him. Oh
Right.
my god.
So there's going to be opportunities for him to at least get on the pitch this year. Like if things are anything close to what it was last year. So yeah, and I just think that his profile of player is more conducive to playing under Maresca than would have been under Pochettino. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, I welcome him back. I think that he's going to be a useful piece going forward. It's just now he just needs a repetition, and
Mhm.
he can say that he's played under a similar system, but like I don't think that he's played under the same sort of yeah, shape wise you can say 3-2-5 or whatever, but I don't know if he's played in a possession based team the way that Maresca looks to play. He's still got to have some things that he has to figure out, the principles and what
Sure.
what's being asked of him in specific roles. But yeah, sure, he knows the shape.
Well, I think we're going to end that one there. Dennis, I really appreciate all your perspective. I know this was a heavier
Mm,
pod than we had hoped to record on a day like today, but I think it's still important conversation to have. And, please give us your feedback on it too. I know there are a
yeah.
lot of perspectives out there on a lot of the kind of earlier pod stuff about Enzo. We try and take the information as it comes and kind of formulate our own thoughts about it. And just really appreciate this community and the sort of dialogue that this community has rather than the Twitter trolls that are now littering my mentions with all sorts of nonsense. So really
Yeah.
appreciate you guys. And yeah, that's all she wrote on this one. Until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.
Up to Chelsea.